Well, hello, we are live. And we are currently looking at Alibaba. Not on purpose, just kind of scrolling through the Power Hour breakout reports using Edgeful, of course. What are we watching today? How are we? It's, what is it, Tuesday? Tuesday, 21st of October. Wow. What a time to be alive. Yeah. So we're going to be going through, obviously, Edgeful platform today, looking at kind of Power Hour breakout report. We're also going to go across a winning trade I had not last night, but yesterday morning, I guess. It was to do with the previous week's range, which we'll dive into a little bit later. But of course, as we start every stream, we're going to scroll through the Power Hour breakout reports. Obviously, we're in that sort of area. Unfortunately, we are kind of obviously halfway through the Power Hour. But yeah. So what we do, we start off. Maybe try to zoom in a bit. I'll do that. Oh, look at that! Beautiful, huge. Yeah. What do we do? Yeah. So here we go. What we do is we go to stock, forex, crypto, futures. Is basically choosing an asset. We're going to go to stock, obviously, because we're looking at SPY, and obviously we're going to go to ticker SPY. But instead of doing that, I've got a watch list down here on the right side, which has all of the reports I like. And the watch list as well. So simply go Power Hour breakout report, which I'm already on, and then SPY. And it pops up the data for SPY, as you can see here. Now, as it suggests, we're probably, I don't really know, are we traveling near highs today? I was looking at stocks. I wasn't actually looking at the SPY before this. So okay, let's get rid of the session data for now. And then what we can see is the low of day was obviously down here. You can see the white line, which is part of the Power Hour, the initial balance breakout, which we will just take off for while we're doing this. And yeah, so the Power Hour, so we've got the low of day, which is this blue line, and then the high of day, this blue line is up here. And then Power Hour starts with the vertical line. And of course, we're kind of traveling in the middle here. So today is probably not going to be a trade for SPY, just because it's not near the high of day or near the low of day, so it's going to be hard to take a trade with that data. I mean, you could have shorted here potentially with the rejection of the trend line, which will draw just temporarily. But again, I'm going to tell you why I wouldn't have done that and why I haven't done that. Let's go white for now. And I don't really want the extended right line at the moment, so let's get rid of that. So what you could have done was short this area and had a stop loss all the way up here. But of course, if you do that, you're looking at an incredibly bad situation. You're kind of 0.13% in the red, and you're probably looking at this sort of area. So I mean, it's not too bad, 1.3, but you are looking for a very dramatic finish in the last 30 minutes, which of course can happen. It literally happened to us last week, and we actually gained money from that. But the actual trade structure was the main thing on that particular trade. It just so happened to be that it went very much in our favour. So you could do that because obviously you've got previous day highs as resistance, and you've got the natural trend line here. And of course, if you drew a trend line from the lows kind of throughout the day, looks like it's kind of trying to break through that as well. So the more I've spoken about this, the more I probably could have taken it. But normally with these sort of trades, I would have my stop loss above this high. Because it's risk to reward, it makes much more sense. But with the data, obviously you would have had it up there. But that's by the by. We're not going to talk about that. We'll leave these lines up on the screen. I think it might be interesting going into the close here today. Of course, if you've got any questions throughout the stream, feel free to stick them in the comments down below on YouTube, or of course you can DM me on X. I'm fairly available on there. I'm very available on there. I'm constantly scrolling through it, of course, posting charts and all the other bits as well that I do. So we're going to go to the first stock, which is Apple. And the way I scan through these is I tend to scan through them probably about 10-15 minutes before Power Hour, if I get the opportunity, of course. So what you can see here is the high and the low of the day set today. Obviously, it kind of happened in the first, I don't know, what are we on, 5-minute chart? First half an hour that kind of happened. And we're kind of trading in the middle, so I'm not really interested in this at all. So we move on to the next one, Amazon. So this one actually would have been really nice to get into. Now here's why. And I'll tell you why. I'm not muted, am I? Good. I've done that before. The reason I say this is because what we can do is get the data up for Amazon. So once again, we can go, we're already on Power Hour Breakout Report, as you can see on the screen. And then we'll go over to Amazon, which is on our watch list. And you can see the percentage of it making a new high on the day is only, new high? Yeah, new high on the day is only 19.23%. So the likelihood of it going back above this line is 19.23%. And the reason why I say this would have been a good shout, personally, is because one, just before Power Hour, zoom in a touch more, just before Power Hour, we had this high, which didn't quite break the previous highs of the day. So that was already a sign that potentially it's going to struggle getting through the high of the day. And then we enter Power Hour with this vertical blue line, and then the data is with us. So 20% likelihood of getting back up here. So what we want to do is place a trade. It doesn't really matter too much. So you are kind of going on the numbers here because we're so close. So you can obviously have a stop loss 0.22 behind, which is pretty good for a stock. And of course, your target profit would probably start with the most recent lows set on the day. You could even go as far to draw a trend line like so, and then perhaps bring that up to here. So if this does actually play out, that'd be quite frustrating, but it'd be a good example for everyone watching here on YouTube or X, of course. So that's kind of my thesis there. And of course, we can bring up other things such as initial balance breakout report, which of course is this blue box. Here's the first hour of trading, and then it basically populates lines for you for the rest of the day. Not too much in the way of resistance to start off the trade, but I think previous day's range. Oh no, that must have been a different chart. Yeah, no, ignore me then. So you would actually just be going on the fact of that candle, which isn't everything. We want kind of confidence when we go into trades, but it would have been a good shout, especially given the market obviously not knowing what it's doing as well. We move on to Alibaba. This one I was quite interested in. I still kind of am, but it's getting a little bit late now. Probably got 20 minutes left or so, just because it's near the lows of the day. So what we're going to do is jump into our H4 platform, and we're going to go to Alibaba, which is down here. And similar to Amazon, it's a 19.23% chance of it making a new low on the day, which means there's a 20% chance of it going below this line. The reason I'm not going to take this is a few reasons. If we get up there moving averages, it's comfortably below the 20, and it's reacting quite poorly to that. By all means, it could pump up above that, but for now it's respecting that as resistance, and we don't like that. And the other one was it this one? Was it something else? It must have been on a different chart or something like that. No, I'm not sure what the other one was. It must have just been the 20 moving average for this one, but even still, oh no, it was a trend line. There we go. So it was a trend line as well. So depending on whether you want to draw it, probably not perfect wherever, but it's using that as resistance also. On the contrary to that, if you do get a bit of a break, then actually that could be quite an interesting entry. If you get a break of the 20 moving average and this trend line, you could enter. It'd be a bit high risk to kind of get into it in terms of there we are. Kind of close into play like a bit of a pump into the close, but of course, it's a bit tricky to do that. And the way I would do that is quite simply, obviously, once it makes the break, potentially maybe up here somewhere, you could have a stop loss, obviously below the lows of the day, because that's where the data lies, and probably a target price of around this bar here, because that's where some aggressive selling came in a little bit earlier on in the day. So yeah, that's another option. We'll move on to Google. We're going to get rid of some lines because it's looking a little bit messy out there. Get rid of that. Previous day's range. I think I actually have a bigger, like a larger. Yes, it's a trend-based fib. Take that off. Take that off for now. But you can see we're kind of in the middle of the range. So you've got a high of the day here and the low of the day. We're kind of trading in the middle. So I'm not interested in that. We'll move on. Same again for Meta, kind of trading within the middle of the day. There's the high of the day, there's the low of the day, trading in the middle. So the power hour breakout report just won't work. Similar to Microsoft. If this price action, I know it's very blue, but just deal with it. Obviously we had earlier on in the day, we had the high set somewhere. Actually the high was in the first 5 minutes, but you know, these highs here obviously quite high up, but if price action was up in this area going into power hour, then of course that would have been opportunity, but it's just a little bit too late now, I think. Even though it's kind of making its way to there, I do still think that might be a bit too late. Netflix, I don't actually trade Netflix, I'm not too sure why that's there. Nvidia, of course, trading actually smack bang in the middle. So you've got obviously the low of day, the high of day, and it's trading in the middle, so not very good for us there. And the same with Tesla. Neo, I don't have that on Neo, but this is just what the playlist I have on the screen here. So I'm going to go back to US 500. Seems to be making a break below this trend line so far. Yeah, and then what we'll do is take a couple of minutes to get my breath back and all that kind of stuff. Maybe sure if you've got any comments or just how you're feeling within the markets at the moment, see how you're doing. You green, you red. What's going on for you at this moment in time? Bit fun though. Been fun trading recently. Had my hairy days. Had a pretty negative day last week, but I journaled it and moved on from it. It's just kind of what you do. Right. Let's move on to the trade example. I'm glad to start this from scratch. I haven't actually got any previous drawings up. So we're going to go back over to the Edgeful platform. We're going to change our report now. So this could be quite interesting for you to see. Obviously we're on the power hour breakup report, but what we want to do is go to previous week's range here, and it will load. It's not the platform, it's my internet. I'm in a different room, so it's a little bit all over the place sometimes. And then we're going to go to, I think we're going to go to SPY actually. Now, very simply, we'll start with the chart because then you can probably visualize it a little bit more. We'll go to the 1 hour chart, it's the 1 day chart. Go to the 1 hour chart on the SPY, not the US 500. We'll go to the SPY instead. And we are going to get rid of all of these lines. Perhaps it would be best if I did this one. Is it this one? Must be this one. Yeah, yes it is. Cool. Right, what are we on? SPY, yeah, SPY 15 minute. We want to go on the 1 hour chart. And for the purpose of this video, I want to get rid of this because this is a little bit of a tweet I did the other day relating to this. This trade that went well. We're going to bring up the, so on TradingView you get built-in indicators for Edgeful, which is really handy and they're actually pretty cool. So if you go into the indicators tab in the top left hand corner here, and of course you've got the kind of generic searching things. I've got a bunch favorited. A lot of Edgeful ones actually favorited. But once you sign up for Edgeful, they'll ask you to put your TradingView username in. And then you basically get an invite only bit here, which you tap on, and you get all these indicators ready for you to select and favorite and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, I've got my certain strategies around power hour breakout report, so I've got a lot related to that. So what we're going to do today is actually go to the previous week's range, which is this one. Previous week's range by session, I believe. I've already got it in here, so I'm going to close that and then turn it on. Yeah, so previous week's range by session. And very simply, all of these sections are weeks in the market. Doesn't look like much, does it? Not many hours in the week. So Monday all the way through to Monday, essentially. So what we can see here is This doesn't look right, so that's Monday there. What is going on? Is that a bar? Have I drawn a bar there? Oh, okay. I see. This hasn't populated yet, so that's just what last week was. Okay. Right. That's a little bit confusing. So we want to go on to draw Fibonacci. Tend to be what I do for now, just to get the midway point. I mean, you can use, I think, a ruler or something like that. Lots of people do different things, but I just use a Fibonacci because my Fibonacci is set up at 50%. And quite simply, obviously, this line is the midpoint. So remember the word midpoint, and then we're going to highlight that. Highlight the midpoint there. So obviously we actually opened up pretty bullish. We opened up here, I think it was. We opened above the midpoint. So if we go back to the data, so essentially what you got here is the data that shows broke previous week high. This is all the data within the last 6 months. So on 60% of the time in the last 6 months, the week has broken the previous week's range, but that would be the case in the bull market. So it's just kind of reaffirming your thoughts that it will probably go up more, just more than 50%. But I'm not really interested in this part of the report. So what we're going to do is go to choose sub report here, which is just above my head, just there. And we want to go by open, and this is basically when it opens. That makes sense. So the reason I said midpoint earlier is because opened above the middle of the previous week. And it's really simple what it does on the tin. This is the middle of the week, last week. So all of this price action last week. This is the middle of it. So if SPY opened above that, there's a 70% likelihood of it making its way back to the highs of last week. Really simple. So what I did was press the right button. I'm going to dive into the 15-minute. It might make it a little bit easier to see. What I did was I actually used the US 500, which is the futures, but I'm using this as a bit more of an easy example. Obviously, we opened up here. You can't really see it because there's big white lines in the way, which is a bit annoying. That's just part of the indicator. I can't turn it off. There's a bar just about here. You can just see it. That is obviously the first bar of Monday morning. So we opened at this point, and the likelihood is that we make it to this line throughout the week, not just yesterday. It just looked good yesterday, which is why I did it. Is 70%, which is a pretty good move. It's not huge in percentage, 0.4, but on the spine it's pretty good, especially if you're taking a position with leverage or you're taking some zero DTEs, which is not recommended, which I do not do, but some people do it. I think my entry actually was somewhere down here, because obviously I took the overnight ones, so I ended up making 0.69%, 0.68%, something like that, which was nice. And that's just a kind of a trade that to start off the week. It doesn't always happen obviously in the first day. Sometimes it happens on Wednesday, Thursday, so it's worth keeping an eye on your charts in that kind of respect. But what we're kind of looking for is confluence. So you can see on the screen here there's lots of volume here on the right side, so perhaps if it does open, doesn't quite make it, but it comes back down to these sorts of areas, then you'll be looking at confluence. And the confluence is, we've got a trend line here, so it'll probably trail back down to this sort of trend line, but we've also got the volume profile here on the right side. So it's those kind of things you're looking out for. You've probably got moving averages in that sort of area as well, so just keep an eye on all those things. I know it makes it sound really easy, but once you get used to it and you have a look at these reports and you trade them, well, not trade them, but just hypothetically trade them for a few days, you do kind of understand it. It's taken me a few weeks for this, which is why it's the first time I brought this up on the stream, because it's taken me a few weeks to kind of get to grips with how to kind of manage it. And of course, once you hit the target, it's great. You could keep it going if you wanted to, but that would be a different sort of trade strategy after that. But the main one I think is very simple. It's just kind of if you open above the midpoint, which of course we discussed is here, anywhere in this sort of area, there's a 70% chance that it makes it to this green line, and that's the data that is shown here from the Edgepool platform. And then obviously from that, you've got a 5% chance of touch the previous week's low, which is quite funny because it's not that far away really, especially in this market that we're in. And then obviously there's a 20% chance of touch previous week high and low. So what that means is there's a 20% chance it comes up to here, which it already has, and then it needs to come all the way back down to this bottom line here, somewhere before Friday, which is very possible, of course, with this market, and that's where the 20% comes from. And the last one is obviously 5% stayed inside previous week's high and low, which would mean the price action throughout this whole week would have to stay inside this box. From top to bottom, it would have to stay inside that box, which of course straight away it's not. And that is where the data lies with the 70%. 70% is a lot more than 5%. I hope that makes sense. If it didn't, what I'll do is I'll probably clip that and make it into a separate video. I think it's really important for people to see, especially if they're interested in trading these sorts of reports. But we'll go back to the Power Hour breakout report. What were we looking at? We were looking at Amazon, weren't we, earlier? Let's see how that's performing. Of course, I didn't do that. And we were also looking at the trend line break on SPY. Let's go back to the chart here. Right, SPY is pushing up, kind of come out of that trend line by the looks of it. Let's go back to my original chart, which was which one not? Yep. 5 minutes. Yeah, here we go, pushing into the close. Oh, I'm on the SPY. I wonder why things weren't working. On that one. There we go. Another indicator which is pretty fun. Yeah, I mean, you could just draw a box, really. Yeah. Market sessions. If you go to the settings of that, it's just called market sessions. Obviously, it's an edge vol indicator. You can select different sessions, and then they kind of pop up on the screen there. And obviously everything like that is the session you've got, but you can tailor that to what you're looking at. And what I mean by that is, if you weren't trading a SPY, you were trading, futures, for example, on ES, you can choose a session. So you can do the New York, London, Asia daily, and all of these obviously have different data points, which is quite interesting. So if you're in a different part of the world, you wanted to trade Asian time, 7 p.m. to 4 a.m. Eastern time. The internet's doing its thing. It will get there eventually, don't worry. Yeah. Load failed. Okay, it won't get there eventually. Perhaps we just refresh it. That might work. There we go. It made it eventually. But you can see in this particular... oh no, that's Asia. I will just go to Asia. Maybe I won't do it because it's not open. London. We'll do London example. We can see that there was a 30% chance of a new low being made in the last hour of the London session, which we're not going to look into yet because that would be a bit too confusing, I think, for this. We just want to have a chill out and look into the charts into the final parts of the day. I bought some Amazon the other day. It's not doing too bad. My average price is 213.32. Not doing too badly. But yeah, I don't normally sit here with the market sessions on, so this bit up at the top here, I might just turn that off because it's a bit easier to see the screen. Of course, I can just dim it by customizing it here and just taking it down a touch, but sometimes a bit easier to see, perhaps. And I don't really trade, just a little tip here as well, I don't really trade off of the moving averages. They're just there to confirm a particular trend. In fact, day trading, I do use a slightly different chart, which I can let you peek into perhaps. It's very white, as you can see on the screen here. I've got, is it there? Yes, I've got, you can't actually see the cloud because, maybe you can, no you can on there. I can't see it on here because of the type of monitor I've got or whatever the color coding is. But you can see the cloud there. It's pretty handy to have that cloud, especially when it changes the trend. Let's go to like a 1 hour chart, for example. And this is nothing special. This is literally just EMA trend. You can see once it kind of goes through, a bit like a golden cross or death cross, similar sort of thing. It's interesting to kind of go back and look, see how it changes and how it moves. Took me a little while to figure that one out, but of course you can really benefit from that. Couple it with some volume and EMA cloud here. It makes sense that the market will push higher, but just not today. It could just continue tomorrow, potentially. Of course, anything can happen. Donald can come out and say something, as he normally does. Let's go back to Edgefield Night. It's a bit easier on the eye. 5 minute. Obviously, we get a bit of a push down now into the close in the last 5 minutes. Last 5 minutes? Yeah, last 5 minutes. Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, just don't hesitate to reach out if you want to have any questions on Edge platform. I'm happy to answer any of them. I'll do my best to. I mean, they have a really good help desk service, and you can always ask them on Twitter yourself. Andre, obviously the CEO, he's always available on DMs as well. But yeah, it's very intuitive. I've used it for quite a few months now, and I've made quite a bit of money on it, so I'm happy with that. So this one is a prime, if you're not looking at the Edgefield, but just kind of looking at the charts in general, a prime suspect of, not suspect, prime opportunity of coming back down and retesting the trend line, slash the moving averages, and probably a bit of volume if I had it on this chart, which I do not at the moment. So that would be 4 points of confidence, 5 almost, because you've got 2 trend lines here. So that would be an interesting entry point here, 6742. But I wouldn't take that into the last 2 minutes because there's a lot of volatility in the last 2 minutes. I'd perhaps take it maybe 5 minutes after the close. Well, we do have Netflix earnings tonight, don't we? I think start of the earnings season. Wow. Okay. I wonder how they'll do. Well, awesome. It's been a pleasure. We'll start wrapping up this stream now. So we normally just do to the close and see what happens there. A bit of a drop into the close here. Big resistance. Do I have volume on here? I didn't think I did, but no. Not normal volume, but yeah. And there's another point of support there as well. Twenty seconds of the market left. I think we call it a day. Look at that big dump into the close. Is that a big dump? It's always hard to tell on these 5 minute candles if that actually is or not. 0.16, yeah, it's a pretty big dump. Nice. Wow. It's been a pleasure, everyone. Once again, if I didn't say the like, subscribe thing. I literally always forget one thing. Where is it? There we go, look. Like, follow. Welcome. That would have been a good one to start with. And like and subscribe. Yeah, do all of that. That'd be really helpful. See you in the next one. I'm not too sure when that will be, but it'll be next week sometime. Yeah, go ahead and hit subscribe and follow on X as well. Take care, everyone. Trade safe.